Welcome to the Digital Remodeler podcast. So glad you've chosen to join us today. And with me is Shy Poosti. He's with Hard Hat Helpers. And Shy, so glad you've chosen to join us today.
I appreciate you having me on today. I really appreciate it. Excited for it.
Absolutely. So, our topic today is remote staffing for contractors and home service companies. And Shai, you and I had a good conversation the other day. We're going to talk about some of the great advantages of hiring remote. We're also going to talk about how you can screw it up. And so glad you're with us. And let's get started. Give everybody just kind of the quick background of how you got started and what Hard Hat Helpers does, and then we'll get really in depth into our topic.
Yeah. Well, first off, really thank you again for having me on. I'm super excited for the call today. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. My name is Shai, obviously, but I pretty much have been in the staffing agency industry for about 7 years, 7 years now. So it's been a lot of like hands-on learning throughout the process, the ins and outs of what works, what doesn't work. What kind of led me to jumping into this is actually I wasn't really in this kind of space before. I really didn't even know how I ended up here. I was on track for veterinary school. I had gotten accepted. Ultimately, decided not to kind of go that route, and instead, I kind of jumped into a business with a couple of my friends that they had started. It was in the staffing space. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but kind of looking back on the journey that I've had throughout the last few years, it's been a lot of fun and a lot of learning, and I'm super glad I ended up taking that step. Looking back, my fiance now is actually in veterinary school. I just finished, and I got a first-hand experience as to how tough that would have been, and I realized that for me, this is definitely where I'm meant to be. I probably would have ended up flunking out with all that studying that they had to do there. But yeah, it's been a lot of learning, like I was saying, and we kind of started out in this industry with a lot of people not really even knowing what remote staffing really was. I mean, a lot of people thought it was just like call center, and that was really just the extent of what overseas staff can do. And this was just right after COVID, so it was right getting introduced to kind of like working from home environment. So it was kind of like people got forced into it. So it was like almost like a perfect combination of like right product, right timing type of thing. And then that ended up kind of taking us really into this industry. And yeah, I mean, here we are today. I mean, 8 years later, 7 years later, I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been a long while.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Yeah. So, when you begin to see that, remote staffing really was a perfect fit for contractors, where did that light bulb really kick on? I mean, obviously you could have chosen a lot of verticals, a lot of niches. What made it really appear to you, man, this is a perfect fit
Yeah.
for contractors?
I mean, honestly, that's a great question. To be honest, when I jumped into that staffing industry with my friends, it was basically a general staffing company. There was no niche specific audience that we were serving. We were just placing any staff in any business, and then we really got to see what businesses it really worked for, what businesses it didn't work for. And one of those businesses that it really worked for was the contracting, home services type of space. And that's kind of where the light bulb went off. Once that company ended up getting acquired, I kind of transitioned out and ended up starting my own thing, Hard Hat Helpers, because I realized that there was a huge market in this area, and a lot of the people that we were dealing with on the day to day, like I was saying, and this was like 5 years ago, they didn't really know what remote staffing was. And when we started this company about 2, 3 years ago, still a lot of the people in this space are just getting introduced to it. So it was kind of like we realized that like our product really served well for this industry. I mean, as you can imagine, there's a lot of busy home service business owners out there.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of those pain points, if you will. So, what are contractors usually struggling with by the time they call you? What's the breaking point where they finally say, "All right, I'm going to reach out to Shy because I need help." what's the pain point generally that's got them finally reaching out to you?
They're just overworked. You can imagine a lot of them spend a lot of times on different job sites and or just working the hands-on stuff, and that means that they're ignoring or putting aside a lot of that admin work, back-end work, follow-ups, all of those things that they'll pile up because at the end of the day they're the business owners. They have to get to it, and they end up going home, getting home, and they have a bunch more work to do, and that's kind of where they realize that they need help. And a lot of other common areas is probably the fact that they've been dealing with a lot of hiring and going through the processes, and it's not an easy process to go through. And those are kind of the main areas as to where clients kind of see our services fitting in. I mean, not to mention the price is always a great point as well.
Yeah. I think this is an important discussion for us too, because there comes a point in the contractor's life where you're good enough that you get busy, but there's going to come a place where you've got to make the shift from being the tradesman to being the business owner. And to do that, you're going to have to get out of the field, but you're also not going to be able to do everything yourself.
Yep.
And that becomes that breaking point where you can't be the jack of all trades, you can't be the one doing everything. And so here's an interesting question for you. Most of the contractors you deal with, are they actually overloaded or are they just disorganized?
To be honest, I think it's a combination of both. I think a lot of them, like you're saying, they're coming from the trade, transitioning into building a business. So a lot of them are just focused on how can I get a client, do the job, and then they open their eyes and they realize they have a business and they haven't really set up the proper systems and things in place to make it so it's streamlined and easy for them to get to certain points and stay organized. So it ends up kind of adding to the point where they feel overwhelmed, overloaded a lot quicker than they usually would have.
That's important. And what do you see are some of the biggest time drains that the owners you're working with are dealing with?
Um, I think that it's a lot of the back end work, the follow ups and stuff like that, like things that kind of just end up piling up. Like they get a call, they miss it, they have to end up following up with it, they have to update clients, they have to get payments. A lot of that admin work just piles up and it compounds. It doesn't just disappear. So when they put it off one time, two times, it ends up multiplying, and then you've got days and weeks going by where things needed to get done. So a lot of that admin work just ends up kind of piling up on their front end, their back end, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and you used a word that I think is super important, and that's systems. So it piles because there's no system, and it becomes the tyranny of the urgent, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think this is a critical component because of that tyranny of the urgent. This has been my experience with our clients, and I'm sure it's what you see. Uh, a lot of contractors stay stuck doing everything themselves because there's no system. There's nothing to hand off because there's not a system to teach anybody.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
kind of your experience?
Yes, yes. A lot of them just end up kind of just going into the motions, and like I was saying, they don't build those proper systems in place, and then they open their eyes. They've got clients, projects, and they don't have those systems in place. So yeah, that overwhelmingness that kind of kicks in a lot sooner than it would have.
Yeah. Which dog is barking the loudest today? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So, uh, also here's another interesting question. Do you find that some owners are just afraid to let go of control?
Yeah, they think they could do everything better themselves. I mean, it's the classic "who knows better than me? It's my business" type of scenario. So it's hard to delegate out, know what to delegate out, trust these people enough to be able to deliver the same quality of work that you are. So I can understand it's a scary thing to you built this business and now you have to pass off something, trust somebody else with a certain part of it, and if they don't deliver, you can end up either losing a client, losing a job, losing money, whatever it is. So it's really hard to kind of let go of certain things. So I can totally understand why they're afraid to take that step.
Yeah. So let's talk about, this transition. We've kind of hit this pain point. Your business is growing, you're good at what you do, but at some point you're going to have to make this move from technician, tradesman to thinking like a CEO, which means you're going to have to let go of something. And so this is where we get into this conversation. Do you hire internally? And you bring this option of working remotely. And so that brings up this first question, what roles really work best remotely? And so from your perspective, what positions are you placing the most right now from remote workers?
Yeah, I'd say one of the more common positions that we place across home service companies is going to be a dispatcher. It's probably makes up like 40% of our business is about placing dispatchers. I mean, every home service type of company, from contractors to electricians, plumbers, everything in between under that home service umbrella uses some form of dispatching. So it ends up being a very popular role that our clients opt for. As well as bookkeeping is a very popular one as well, and drafting is a new and up and coming one that we've been seeing in the past year that's kind of been becoming really popular. I'd say between bookkeeping and drafting, they together probably make about 25%, and then the rest of that percentage is pretty much split pretty evenly around the other positions that we play. So, and we're not position specific, so it's really just at our clients' needs. So, things like marketing to sales, but again, the more common roles is going to be dispatching, bookkeeping, and drafting. And then again, those admin things, just a random office admin, office manager type role is also super common.
Okay. Why do you think dispatchers are such a popular role?
It's to one maximize your schedule first and foremost. I mean, especially if you've got multiple team members, it's hard to keep track of your schedule and your team's schedule, especially when they're both overloaded. So it's one maximizing the schedule. It's also you're on the job site, so you're unable to answer a lot of these follow ups, calls, and keeping people kind of accountable when they're being on their own job sites and stuff like that. So it ends up being something that people are looking to kind of pass off because they need to stay organized on that front. They need to have people in certain places at certain times and stick to those times so they can maximize their profits. They're not having a driver just sitting around 2 hours, 3 hours waiting for the next job. It's really staying organized and maximizing that driver or that dispatcher's, I mean, that technician's schedule. So they're really getting the most bang for their buck for every single employee that they have.
Yeah. Are there certain roles that, contractors assume can't be done remotely that really actually can?
Almost every single role. I mean, you'd be surprised. They pretty much have skepticism towards every single role, just because they're so used to doing everything in person that they just it's just they just assume that majority of this stuff has to be done in person. Obviously, things that they think they can delegate out the easiest would probably be like marketing, and then looking at maybe some basic admin stuff, but they don't realize that you can pass off the drafting, the estimating, the dispatching, and stuff like that to remote people. They don't technically have to be in office to do this stuff. Even an office manager, the name office manager doesn't necessarily need to be in office because majority of the tasks don't have to do with walking the day to day in the office. It actually has to keep with keeping the people on the team accountable and keeping things moving and flowing properly.
That's good. Are there any specific roles that you would say absolutely you don't want to consider for remote?
Um, I I'm a big believer in outbound sales doesn't work well for remote. It's tough. It's far and few between. I'm not saying it's 100% doesn't work, but it's definitely one of the ones that when it comes to retention, it's almost like a revolving door, whether it's on the client side or on the agent side. As you can imagine, it's a very measurable position. So if they're not delivering in a month or two, they're getting cut, and it takes a while to build up an outbound pipeline. So it's really a tough kind of scenario that they get tossed up into. So we don't really recommend that role too often. Obviously, if the systems are set up properly, we may consider it, but it's definitely one that we almost strongly recommend against.
Okay, good. And then, what makes one contractor successful with a remote staff and another contractor struggles? What's the differentiator?
I mean, what I was just saying, pretty much, the systems, having the proper SOPs in place, training material, making sure that these, like I said, we'll consider a cold outbound role if the systems are in place. They've got people in this role, maybe already seeing results, delivering, so they could just kind of plug this person in and kind of do the same stuff. But it's really important to have those systems in place to ensure that these people are going to be successful. At the end of the day, they're not in office, so they can't always just go knock on your door for every little thing that they need, or just kind of wave you down as you're passing by. They need to have some sort of material to kind of go in reference every single time they have some sort of question or something like that, because that way they're not wasting your time asking every single one of these little nuanced questions. They can always reference some of these guides or materials that you have.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing. You and I talked about this, on our preliminary call because we work with a predominantly remote team and having good SOPs, good systems in place will make or break you. And if you have poor systems in place, your remote team will expose that very quickly. So
Yeah.
I think that's critical. Uh, what have you noticed, on this next question, um, about certain types of companies that adapt faster than others? So your companies that really quickly adapt, what makes the difference with them? Is it back to systems and SOPs, or is there even maybe a mindset that makes the difference?
I think it's a combination. I think obviously having those SOPs and training materials makes it so you can really just plug these people in, and the systems are already in place. They don't have to kind of come in and one create the systems, also simultaneously learning the role. But it's also having an open mindset to be willingness to delegate these tasks out, trust these employees because you've properly gone through the vetting process and made sure that these people are going to be a good fit for the role. So you have to almost trust your instincts in a sense that these people are going to be able to deliver the job that you are kind of delegating them out to do. So it's having trust in their capabilities, but yeah, and then also having those proper systems in place.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go a little beyond this. We've talked systems and SOPs, but how about creating culture? How do
Yeah.
you encourage your companies to develop culture beyond just systems and SOPs? Because we want to, I think it's important not just to have here's how you do the task, and but how do you encourage your hiring companies to create a culture around these remote staffing positions as well?
I think it's important to one get to know your staff, see what they like, what they don't like, what their goals are, so you can really kind of guide them in that direction. Delegate tasks that make sense for where they want to be in the future, whether it's within your company or somewhere beyond that. But ultimately, really allowing them to have those opportunities, but also kind of having that ability to be like, we can take a little bit of time out of work to kind of um, one celebrate a birthday or this or here's a holiday thing, but all of these things really make a difference. I mean, at the end of the day, people think that because these are remote employees that you shouldn't integrate them into your team like you would an office employee, but it's super important to do that because it really makes a difference into how they feel about the role, how they feel about the company. They're going to be more driven to treat this like it's their own, come in and crush it every day. So you want to set that tone. You want to make sure that they like coming to work, they like their employer. At the end of the day, that doesn't mean that you have to bend over backwards and kind of adjust to everything and be in that sense. But ultimately, it really makes a difference when you are open to kind of getting to know them and establishing a rapport with them and actually making sure that they actually like coming to work and like who they're working for, because it does make a huge difference in the effort that they put in each day.
That's good. And let's talk about, you're getting ready to bring on some remote staff. How do you get organized for that? What are some of the organization steps you need to be taking before you bring that remote person on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's having the training material in place. So, like, whatever role you're going to be sourcing for, make sure that you have proper outlines for these roles. So that way, when you do onboard them, you train them, you have something for them to reference. Obviously, we were mentioning that before, but it really is important. The more information you and the more detailed that standard operating procedure, the SOP is, the more like you're going to be able to have like the time to kind of do your own stuff and allow them to kind of just focus on the work. They won't be bothering you as much, so they can really reference this stuff. So the more detail that it has, it really makes a huge difference. But also making sure that you understand the scope of the position too. I mean, a lot of the times, business owners, they've gotten to the chance to kind of play around with every single role within their company. So it's important to understand the scope of that position so you can measure what a good person in that role looks like versus a bad person in that role. The last thing you want to do is kind of just prolong someone in a role because you want to continuously try to make it work. But at the end of the day, if you have a lot of these things in place, you'll be able to identify these things right out of the gate. So you're saving a lot more time and money. And also for them, you're saving them time from having to kind of go through the processes ultimately to kind of lose a job after they've been with you for so long. So it's really important to have these things in place so you can really develop a strong long-term partnership with these employees.
That's good. And what would a healthy onboarding process look like? How would you direct a company to just set up their onboarding process?
It's again, it's probably dependent on the role, and how far into the task that they're going to be delegating out, what tools they're going to be utilizing. But I think it's important to be very hands-on, especially during the beginning. Understand that it does take time to get people ramped up. At the end of the day, you're sourcing these people within the role, so they have already got the capabilities. But it's also making sure that they understand how you like things, how your company does things different than their previous employer. So it's important to kind of have that time and like I said, get to know them, build that rapport. The best way to do that is at the beginning, so you can really build a strong relationship and foundation for what the future of that partnership is going to look like. Yeah, I'd say that it's super important to kind of delegate out some time, or block off some time to really meet with these people, spend some time going through the material, and alongside making sure that you have a very in-depth SOP will always ensure that this employer employee relationship is going to be set up for a good long-term relationship.
Good. And then what are some simple ways that you can document processes? How do you encourage, your hiring clients to document their processes?
I would say there's a few easy ways. There's third party tools that you can use that you can as easily as just getting on the going like literally you click record, you just go through the processes and it kind of jots down every single step of the process. Obviously, those tools cost money, so if you want to kind of go on a more budget friendly route, just go through the process yourself, see what you're doing. If you're kind of emailing this person, you're pulling this template, reference all of these things, make sure you have links to all of these different areas. So we provide it at our company, we provide a slight guideline onto how they can do these things, but it's really just along those lines, making sure that they include all of the credentials that are needed for the position to be successful, any FAQs that are going to be referenced, so that way the position, like I was saying, so that way they're not wasting your time too much with having to go through all of that stuff. They can kind of just reference a lot of that stuff. At the end of the day, it's frequently asked questions, so it's probably going to be the top 10 questions that they're going to ask, going to be probably laid out in that document. So it's important to have a dedicated area so they can easily reference that stuff rather than having to sift through all the material just to kind of identify what they're looking for. But yeah, it's important to have links and references to all of these different materials that they're going to be utilizing within the position, templates, and then, like I said, important to really meet with them and go through the material with them, make sure that they understand your perspective on things so they can really do it how you like it.
That's good. Now, I want to circle back around just for a minute to outbound sales and the mistakes there, because I know that that's something you're probably getting approached with quite a bit. Everybody wants outbound sales and remote people to do that. And why does, you said already, that's the one thing you discourage people from, unless they already have processes in place. Why does outbound sales fail so often with remote staff?
I think a lot of the times it's like a thing that people want to try, and they just don't ever have the time to really do it, and or they did it themselves, so they know it could be done, but really there's a different drive that's lit under the business owner versus some random employee sales outbound salesperson. So it's really just like having that system in place makes a huge difference. But also like the target of people you're reaching out to, those leads that you're going to be dealing with on the day to day, the quality of people that you're reaching out to, the offer that you have in place, all of these components really make a difference into the position. And at the end of the day, it's a super measurable role, like I was saying. So like if they're not delivering, they're going to get cut. And a lot of the times it takes time to develop an outbound pipeline. It takes where it would take like a month on an internal pipeline, it could take 2, 3, 4, 5 months. At the end of the day, you're reaching out to these people outbound. They have to look into you, make sure that you meet their requirements, the pricing, all of this stuff makes sense. And they probably didn't even really have that idea to begin with. So it's really just laying the foundation and continuously being consistent and persistent with those follow-ups. So we strongly recommend against it because a lot of the business owners don't have those proper systems in place and they haven't really done it to understand that it does take that amount of time and that amount of effort. So we strongly recommend against it. I mean, and at the end of the day, like when it comes to like the people in the United States and who they're dealing with on the day to day, if they get a call from a number that they don't recognize, and it's again somebody from another country, there's a 9 times out of 10 chance that they're going to think it's a spam call and they're just going to hang up before they even get the opportunity to say a few words out of their mouth. So it's really important to make sure that you have the proper lead quality, you have proper systems, because at the end of the day it really does make a difference. With all of those components, you don't really just want to throw someone in the role and kind of hope for the best, because that's really going to be a recipe that doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, I think and that's why I wanted to go back to this. I think a lot of uh, home service business owners, a lot of contractors, they're just desperate for leads, and so they see this as a cheap, easy way to maybe generate some activity, but they don't have proper foundations in place, and it just becomes a disaster. So that's why I wanted to go back and hit this one again. You can't delegate chaos, and if you don't have good systems in place, all you're going to do is exasperate that. So let's get into the economics here, because I think people are going to be surprised at the economics. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk uh, the realities of what remote staffing actually costs. And I think people are going to be surprised. You were telling me just the breakdowns of what it costs when you place somebody. What is that client actually paying for that placement?
Yeah, for our company, we charge, it's a range. Again, it's dependent on the role, but they're never really paying anything more than $14 an hour. The lower end positions, $12 an hour. So it's a very tight range. Not that it's like a massive range, but it does depend on the position. And that includes a horde of benefits and additions, not just the staff and their pay rate, but it also includes benefits for the staff. It includes us helping you out with managing, monitoring, and all of these various components to really ensure the success. Because at the end of the day, we've been doing this for a long time. We know what kind of bases we need to cover to ensure that this relationship with the remote staff is going to be as successful as possible. So we're kind of there to kind of hold your hand throughout the whole process and make it as easy as possible for you. So you don't really have to kind of go through that process all your own, but there is that option as well. So but yeah, there's a ton of savings. I mean, where you usually save about 70% for what you would hire locally. So most of the times, drafters, office admins, all of these things, we're able to get at about 70% less than what you would pay for a local hire. So you're saving around $50,000-$60,000 annually. So whether that's going back in your pocket or back into the business, there's a lot of money on the table. So it's important to really know that, because it really will allow you to really scale your systems a lot quicker. Because if you do want to really grow faster, you really have to do and be aware of these kind of things that are out there, and these tools that are available for your business, like remote staffing and other things that we've discussed here today.
Yeah, that's it. That's important. And it's also interesting to note, and you brought this statistic up to me on our earlier call, that your retention rate's around 96%. And so that's something also that I think sometimes gets overlooked. And I know even in our organization, uh, our average tenure is over 6 years. We don't turn over employees, and I talk to my friends that own traditional brick and mortar companies here locally, and their biggest complaint, they can't retain people,
Yeah.
and hiring just drives them crazy. And I have the opposite problem. My people don't go anywhere, and so it's a very interesting conversation. And so here's a question for you. Why do you feel like you have such high retention rates when so many people are struggling with retention? I mean, that's a common, especially in the trades and in home services, that's a common complaint. Why is it not such a struggle?
I think it's a combination of things. I think one, we really source the staff to have specific experiences with your guys' role that you're looking to fill. So we really provide a more custom fit sourcing. So a lot of the times, home service business owners, if they're doing it themselves, they may not have as in-depth knowledge when it comes to interviewing and all the different things that they can do to filter out candidates to make sure that they're really picking out the best fit one. So it's a combination of that, but also what we do here at our company that kind of separates us from a lot of our competitors in this space is that we advocate for higher agent pay rates. So a lot of our competitors really are profit focused, so they're trying to find the lowest cost staff on the back end so they can maximize profits. For us, we actually pay about $2 to $3 more per hour for the same role. I know it doesn't sound like a lot when you're in the States, but with these overseas staff, that's like basically paying almost 50-60% more for the same position. So we're getting higher quality candidates, more committed to the position in combination with sourcing them specific to your guys' needs. It really ends up being a good combination. Plus, we're really good at vetting our clients, making sure that they actually their requirements and what they're looking for, we can deliver that. We don't want to oversell and over promise things. We really want to make sure that we can set the proper expectations and deliver that. So our main objective is to build long-term partnerships, and that's because our margins are so small. The only way that we can build long-term partnerships is by placing high quality staff, making sure that we're, like I said, covering all these bases to ensure that the partnership is going to be as successful as possible.
Okay, good. So here's obviously the question that's probably floating around in somebody's mind. So why remote staff when maybe I could just use AI? How is AI going to affect all of this?
Yeah, I mean, AI is amazing. You shouldn't not use AI. There's a lot of things that you can delegate out to AI, but AI can't do everything, and somebody also needs to manage AI. So there's a lot of different areas in where you can fit in remote staff alongside AI to really maximize the potential of both the AI and the staff. So you're really scaling your business a lot faster, optimizing your processes a lot quicker. So I don't want to say it's one or the other. I think both of them are going to be things that are going to be crucial and beneficial to the growth of your business.
That's good. And what advice would you give to a contractor that's considering hiring a remote staffing firm for the first time?
Make sure you got the systems in place. Like we were saying throughout the call today, it's super important to have proper systems in place. Make sure that you understand the scope of the position that you're looking to pass off. You have set KPIs, expectations for what the role can deliver, so that way when someone does get plugged into the position, you have these things to measure the success of the role. It's not just kind of just throwing the person in the role and hoping for the best, but really setting it up for success. At the end of the day, it's your business, right? You want to make sure that you're setting it up for the most success it can possibly have. So I would say spend a little bit extra time setting up the processes, the foundation, so that way when you do want to bring people in, It's going to be easy, and plus it's a little bit more time up front, but trust me, it's a lot less time on the back end, whether that's going to be having to turn over staff because they're not understanding the role, and or answering a bunch of questions because they don't have the proper material to reference. So it's important to set up the foundation so that way it's going to, one, save you a lot more time in the future, but also allow you to kind of scale a lot quicker as well.
That's good. So, Shy, if somebody wants to learn more about you or connect with you, learn more about hard hat helpers, where can they go and do that?
You can check us out at hardhathelpers.com. I'll also provide you some sort of access points, so if in case people wanted a reference from any of your channels. But that's probably going to be the easiest way. We've got socials, Hard Hat Helpers, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I think we have a YouTube also. We're pretty much out there on all different platforms. So some way, somehow, if you find us, it'll funnel back to being able to set up a call directly with our team to learn more. We don't charge anything for it. It's about 15 to 30 minutes, so you can really address all those questions, concerns, and ultimately decide if it's going to be a good fit for you or not.
Perfect. And any final thoughts for our audience before we sign off today?
Yeah. I think that there's an opportunity to do it yourself out there. There's a lot of companies out there that do what we do. It's important to get an idea of what's out there. I don't want to say just come to us and we're the one-stop shop who can do the job, which we are. But I do think that it's important to understand that there are different routes that you can go. If you wanted to hire directly yourself, you're probably going to save about $3, $4 more per hour, but that's going to come with the back end of having to do all of that extra work yourself. So it's really important. And we are the only staffing agency out there, remote staffing agency out there that really deals with strictly the home services space. So we've got a lot of experience when it comes to dealing with contractors and different people in this space. So whenever it comes to placing these roles and the tools that you guys are utilizing in-house, it's going to be a lot quicker for us to get your staff ramped up. So it's a win-win for you guys and for us.
That's good. Well, Shai, thank you for joining us today. And for our audience, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Digital Remodeler podcast. And we look forward to having you again on our next episode.
Appreciate it, Carl. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thank you.